Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna Mata.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Let's go straight into our Mangala Charanam. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatchade Shatarane. Hi. So, good to see all of you here. Whoever can turn on your video, please turn your video on. So we're continuing with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, starting from text 15. So we've been talking about Krishna's appearance, how Krishna is different from ordinary people, or jiva souls. His appearance is also very different, his activities are very different. Everything about him is spiritual, pure, transcendental. He's untouched by the modes of material nature. And the more we understand that, the more we make ourselves eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. Right? We also looked at reasons why people don't understand or choose not to even try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna as a person. And the reasons he gives in text 10 are attachment, fear, and anger. Okay? So, but anyways, if we have at least a little bit of faith and we associate with devotees and start practicing devotional service, we can get purified of these material attachments and fears and anger and other obstacles to our spiritual life, and we can make steady progress. Because by that surrender, whatever it is, Krishna rewards and Krishna helps us. And that's one of the great benefits of bhakti. Right? Later, when you get to chapter 12, you're going to see that impersonalists, they're also trying to be spiritual, but it's very difficult because they're all on their own. Whereas the bhakti yogi, the devotee, as we take shelter of Krishna, surrender to Krishna, then Krishna helps us. Right? We don't have to be a strong swimmer to swim across the ocean of birth and death. And even the strongest swimmer can't swim across the ocean because it's too big. It's too difficult. It's too far to cross. But Krishna comes down on the back of Garuda and he picks us up and he puts us on the transcendental platform. So then everything becomes easy by Krishna's help. And that's Krishna's mercy on us. So then we also looked at ways that people they approach Krishna, but indirectly, right? Either through demigod worship, through varnashram, etc., and make some spiritual advancement. but it's gradual, right? So Krishna's advising, best thing is just approach him. Just approach him directly. Take full responsibility for our situation here in the material world. Because ultimately, although Krishna facilitates and he appreciates us doing our duties, he says that he's not affected by any duties, any work in this material world. Not only does he not get any reactions, obviously, for anything that he does, for any of his activities, but also he's not very impressed by our material activities, right? Whether we earn a lot of money or, you know, get some great material possession or we get a high position. He's not really impressed by that unless we're able to use it in his service to make a difference in somebody's life, inspire someone in Krishna consciousness. So we concluded with text, yeah, see, we read text, yeah, we concluded with text 15, where Krishna was advising that we follow in the footsteps of liberated souls, right? We find a self-realized soul and act following in their footsteps because they understand the transcendental nature of Krishna. So we need to find someone who knows Krishna, and that's the qualification of a guru. That Krishna Tattva Veti, yeah, that someone who knows the science of Krishna, they can become a guru. That's what Lord Chaitanya says. So someone who knows this science, we should find them, who knows the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities in this world, and learn from that person how to act, right? We don't stop all activities, we learn how to act. So now in today's section, we're going to learn more about action, about how to act in this world, different kinds of activities, different qualities of activities, and the results of those different types of activities. Okay. So, all right, let's read 16 to 18, please.
May I?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what is action. What action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. Text 17. The intricacies of actions are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what the forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Text 18. One who sees inaction, in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so this concept of action is very important because we are active, right? The nature of the soul is to be active. So the question is how to act for our ultimate self-interest and how to avoid acting in ways that is against our self-interest. So now Krishna is going to go into some detail about that. And this is very relevant for Arjuna because he's standing there in the middle of the battlefield and he's worried about, he's thinking that, oh, acting in, you know, the action of fighting is going to bring about great suffering for other people and also for himself because he's going to get entangled in sinful reactions. And so now Krishna is going to explain, he's going to tell Arjuna, no, you don't understand action. Let me explain to you about action. And there are certain types of actions that give you sinful reactions and certain kinds of actions that don't give you sinful reactions. And let's just get this very clear. So first of all, Krishna, he's a little, what's the word, sympathetic or empathetic. He's empathizing with Arjuna's misunderstanding. He's saying, don't worry. You're a little confused about, action, but don't worry. Even the intelligent, even these great souls, even those who are kavis, right? Kavaya, the intelligent, are sometimes bewildered in determining what is action and inaction. So, don't think bad about yourself. Don't worry. Even intelligent people have difficulty understanding this. So it's natural that you're also having difficulty understanding this. So I'm just going to explain it to you. And he says that if you understand this, then what's the result? Yaj Gyatva Mokshyase Ashubhat, that you'll become liberated. Basically, you're liberated from everything Ashubha, everything that is not auspicious, not good. You'll be free from basically all bad fortune, all sinful reactions. So Prabhupada says in the purport to text 16 that action in Krishna consciousness has to be executed in accord with the examples of previous bona fide devotees. And that's what Krishna just said in text 16, exactly the same thing, that all the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature, and you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. So that's tat tat karma pravartanat, right? Following in the footsteps of great souls. And he says also that action should not be independent. We should always act in the line of disciplic succession. So this is interesting because yesterday we were talking about disciplic succession, right? Evam parampara praptam, imam rajashaya vidu. That this science of the spiritual science of Bhagavad Gita is received in disciplic succession. So we receive knowledge in disciplic succession, but not just philosophical or theoretical knowledge, but we also learn from disciplic succession how to act. We get examples because there's prachar, preaching, and there's also achar, example. And so what it means to be an acharya, right? We are looking at our disciplic succession and looking at the prominent acharyas. So acharya means one who teaches by example. It's a person who walks their talk. So someone who knows the science of Krishna, it's understood, or it's, implicit in that is that they're living by the science of Krishna. If you learn Bhagavad Gita, it means you're supposed to be applying that in your life. And then when we practice what we preach, then we become an acharya. So all of these liberated souls that Krishna is talking about in previous verse, they understood this and they acted accordingly. And therefore we should look to them as models of how to act in this world so that we don't become entangled. Right? And then the principles of action, because the disciplic succession starts with Krishna. So these principles of action, they also start with Krishna. Dharman tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. It's what Prabhupada mentions in the purport here. So we shouldn't just, speculate. These are not subject matters for speculation that we're just going to sit down and figure out, all right, what's the best thing for me to do? I want to be spiritual. Let me figure out how I'm going to do that on my own, right? Let me figure out who God is and who I am and what I'm supposed to do in this world. If we do that, we're most likely going to come to the wrong conclusion. But if we receive knowledge and we see the good examples of those who have knowledge and follow in their footsteps in our activities in this world, then we're going to be able to make real progress and get clarity. Okay, so then he says, yes, these intricacies of action are very hard to understand. So he says there are three different kinds of action. In text 17, he says karmano. So that's karmana, means regular action. And then vikarma, which means forbidden action. And akarma means inaction. So karma here means, in this context, karma means those actions which are according to Vedic principles, but done for material gain, basically like karma kanda. Okay. Then vikarma means materialistic activities which are done without any consideration of Vedic principles. So they go against the Vedic principles. So those are sinful actions, basically whimsical, or just doing whatever you please. And then akarma means actions without any reactions. So the difference here is that karma, when we act according to the Vedic injunctions, then we get good karma, right? Because we're doing the good things that the Vedas recommend we do. We're doing our prescribed duties. We're doing some religious rituals. We're doing worship. So we're getting good karma. Vikarma, we're acting without adherence to Vedic principles. And those actions are going to give us bad karma. And then akarma means activities which don't generate any karma-free activities. So, yeah, we have to understand the difference between these things so that we can live a happy life in this world and ultimately come to the stage of akarma, where everything that we do is karma-free. And not only that, but like devotional service is beyond akarma, right? Devotional service is that activity which not only doesn't generate any more karma, but frees you from all your past karma, right? As we discussed. So it's very, very powerful. And then also there's another type of karma, which is in the bad category, which is ugra karma, that we'll hear about in chapter 16, that are, acts that are just very extremely destructive. As Krishna says, they're meant to destroy the world. So the activities of demoniac people, right? Like the Hiranyakashipu and Ravana and Kamsa. So it's important that we know the difference so that we can act in ways that elevate us and get us disentangled. Because some actions make us more and more entangled and some make us more and more free. We want to be free. The soul is meant to be free from entanglement. Daya?
Hare Krishna Mataji, am I audible?
Yes, you're not very loud, but you're kind of more or less.
Hare Krishna Mataji, as we have discussed that we have to follow the great personalities who are very like acharyas, and we have to be in contact with them. So my question is that we have listened, we have to follow our Vaishnavas, right? So according, like, it is not my question, but I have faced this type of question. That's why I am asking. It is like anyone who worship Vishnu is Vaishnava. It is like a simple definition of Vaishnava. And if he is like a devotee of Vaishnava, he's devotee of Vishnu, he's Vaishnava. So should we follow that Vaishnava or not? He is very like a good and we know he's very good devotee, he's pure devotee, and he is out of our sampradaya. Then how should answer this one? And like I'm also confused.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so basically we have to choose, a sampradaya. We choose a particular acharya and stick with that person, right? That's generally what's recommended, that you take shelter of a guru and then you make your decision, right? You do the research, do the investigation, and find out a pure devotee who inspires you, who you can put your faith in, who you can surrender to. And by surrendering to that person, you can surrender to Krishna. And you feel like this is a really genuine person who not only knows the scriptures, but applies the scriptures, who is able to explain them in a way that you can understand and be enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness, and that they care about you and they're available, right? So, you find yourself a guru, basically, and then you take shelter of that guru and you cling to the lotus feet of that guru. And when you've made the decision, then don't stay shopping around. Just stick to the lotus feet of that person, because Krishna consciousness, spiritual life is very personal. So it's not that we won't have shiksha gurus. We'll definitely have, it's not just all about the diksha guru. We also have shiksha gurus who, Krishna's Kaviraj says in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, are just as important, equally important as our diksha guru. And also Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that actually the shiksha gurus can be more important than the diksha guru. And we see that in our line of acharyas. So, but the point is that the diksha guru and the shiksha guru, their instructions should be aligned. They should be harmonious. Otherwise, there's going to be confusion. So, yeah, you decide on one path. So, yeah, so in ISKCON, we're very fortunate because we have Srila Prabhupada as our founder acharya, and we have, his disciples and grand disciples and great grand disciples who are our Diksha and Shiksha gurus, and they should be all aligned with Srila Prabhupada, at least, his mood, his mission, and the principles and practices that he taught us. And then, of course, there's going to be some variation in, what one devotee sees as most important, or, they have their own personalities and their own moods and their own ways of communicating and practicing. But generally, there's a sense of unity. There's even in the diversity of personalities that we have as Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, there's unity because everyone is, they're all followers of Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada set us very clear standards and he gave us a mission, right? To spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, every town and village. That's the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So there may be other nice Vaishnavas out there who are, worshiping very nicely, doing very nice service, practicing very nice sadhana, and they may be also pure devotees. And Prabhupada said, one time when when devotees went to Mayapur, they were eager to go and, see different places, and they visited another temple, one of the Gaudiya Math temples. I think there was some festival going on, they were invited, so they went over there. And then they came back with some books from one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers. And they were showing Srila Prabhupada, and he said, oh, where did you get those books? And they said, from this, whatever Gaudiya Math temple. And Srila Prabhupada said, oh, you should take them back. And then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, but we paid for this. We don't want to ask. No, don't worry about getting the money back. Just take them back. Just give them back. Say, thank you very much. We appreciate your books and your service. And we want to just return these and do it respectfully. And so the devotees were thinking, well, what is this? This seems a little closed-minded or whatever, And Srila Prabhupada said, the thing is that, the philosophy that they're giving, there's nothing wrong with it. This is all aligned with, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and our acharyas. But the thing is that if they say anything differently than I've said it, then you're going to be confused. So for the sake of not becoming confused, not starting controversies, and, just stick with the one thing. If you have something good, just stick with that. You don't need to take the chance of confusing yourself or coming across something that's not bona fide, right? Because who knows? It's hard to tell sometimes if people are very pure, and we know Prabhupada says many times there's many versions of Bhagavad Gita out there that the commentaries are, misinterpretations and misleading, and they're cheaters, and they're, dragging people to the wrong destination. So we have to be very careful. So if you found something pure, if you found something good, just stick with it. Save yourself the time and energy and trouble. I've seen devotees, young devotees who've been, reading this books from here and there, different Vaishnavas, and they become very, very confused about things, because there's different ideas out there. And what happens is it disrupts their faith in Srila Prabhupada and in ISKCON, and they end up with a lot of doubts. They start to question, they lose their enthusiasm because they're thinking, oh, maybe Prabhupada was wrong, maybe this other person is right, then how can I give myself wholeheartedly to Srila Prabhupada's mission? And they stay torn between two, Vaishnav worlds or camps or whatever. So it's better just, Prabhupada talks about how the disciple should be chaste, right? It's like if you get married, before marriage, you're looking around, oh, maybe this person's a good husband, maybe that person is a good husband. You're doing research, you're doing the astrological charts, consulting the astrologer, asking your parents, asking senior devotees about the person's character. And maybe you spend a couple of years doing that. And then finally you decide on a person and you marry that person. After that, you stop looking around, right? Your looking is done. You're with that person. You're chaste to that person. You're loyal to that person. You serve that person. You serve together, and you tolerate whatever you need to tolerate, and help each other in Krishna consciousness, and that's it. So it's a very similar thing. The disciple has the same kind of chastity to the guru, that you look around, do your investigation, but when you decide, then you remain chaste to your guru. Okay? And the other Vaishnavas we can respect from a distance, right? We can offer our respects. We see a Gaudiya Math sannyasi, we pay obeisances just like we would an ISKCON sannyasi. you know, but we don't, we keep a respectful distance.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. All right, so what else do we have here? Yeah, so this thing of akarma is interesting because without karma. So yeah, these points here it's a little bit of a tongue twister. Text 18. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent. So what does that mean? So does anyone have any ideas? What is inaction in action? The first thing? What's an example? Well, let me just explain it first. So inaction means that you're not getting karma, right? You're doing something, you're acting, but it's inaction. So what's an example of that?
Mataji, Hare Krishna, I have an example.
Yes.
Like we are in Krishna consciousness. We are also, it's like a wife. Like a wife. He is ordering his husband, her husband, and following their, doing their work at home. But she's always exalted in Krishna. She's doing her duty. But
Okay, so it's a little unclear. You're a little bit hard for me to understand. Go ahead though. I'm getting, I think, most of it.
it's like I'm saying that there's a lady, like a wife, or some like person who is who is in Krishna consciousness, who is doing his bhakti, but with that he's also doing his work of home. Are you getting me?
Okay, so yeah, so somebody's doing their work, they have a job and they're doing their work, but they're doing it in Krishna consciousness. They're trying to, you know, have a mood of doing it for Krishna. They're giving some of the results of their work to the temple or to devotee projects, right? They're raising their family in Krishna consciousness like that. Yeah, so that's good. Good example. So that's action. They're being very active. They're going out in the world. They're working. They're doing things, but they're doing it for Krishna. So then it's actually a karma. It looks like karma, but it's actually a karma because by offering the results of work to Krishna, by connecting it all to Krishna, they get free from karma. Okay, good. So now what's an example of action in inaction? So this means that you're not doing anything, but you're still getting karma.
Work in a mode of ignorance,
What's that?
being lazy, not doing anything.
Okay, so just sitting on being a couch potato, just lying around doing nothing all day. Yeah, so how does one get karma for that?
There's a bad result of that also. Na? That's why there's karma.
Yeah, but why? Why do you get karma for just sitting on a sofa all day?
Maybe like we know we have to do chant, but we are not chanting. We are doing nothing, but we are getting karma.
Doing nothing is also work.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, but you're not hurting anyone.
Maybe it's like I'm sitting here and thinking about that I'm in Vrindavan and seeing the Krishna there. Maybe this one. Like I'm sitting in my home, but I'm thinking about that I'm serving Krishna in Vrindavan. So what is that?
Now, what's an example of action in something that you're not doing? Or yeah, like sitting around doing nothing is a good example, but what I want to know is why. Why do you get karma for that?
Not doing the duty?
No.
Yeah, you're not doing your duty because you should be doing something. You're supposed to be doing something, right? It's like
Mataji, can we say we are offering work to Bhagwan, but our mental is something else. We are thinking about some dress or some party and we are offering the vogue. Can we say that action in action?
That we're, say again?
Action and inaction.
Yeah. What did you say about action in inaction?
We are offering prasadam, we are offering vogue to Bhagwan, but we are thinking about something else.
Is that action in inaction?
No.
I guess it's kind of subtle. You should be thinking of Krishna, but you're not thinking of Krishna. So you're not thinking is inaction, but still you're doing the offering, which is action. I know but I think because I mean, at least you're going through the motions of doing the offering. Hopefully Krishna sees that at least you're doing something. So you might get some small karma. But yeah, so the thing is that this is where a lot of people who are more like impersonalist spiritualists get themselves into trouble, because they think that the way to be spiritual is to stop doing anything, right? To stop all action and just go and sit in a cave and, meditate, don't talk to anyone, don't do any work, don't do anything at all. But because they're not doing their duties, then they're getting karma for that. It's just like, if there's a doctor and he has if there's like an epidemic, people are dying of a disease, and a doctor has the medicine and he doesn't give the medicine, which could save their life. So many people are dying because he's just sitting on his sofa, with the medicine in his refrigerator or something. And so, he basically is guilty, of murder. Like if that's actually a law, it's called, what's it called? When doctors, they take like the Hippocratic Oath or something like that, that says whereby they swear that they will do anything possible to save the life of a person. And if the patient dies and they found out that it's because the doctor was negligent, because, there was a cure and they didn't give them the medicine or give them the treatment or do the surgery, then the family can sue the doctor because they were inactive. So like that. Or if you're a parent, and you have children and, you just decide to like not provide meals for your children because you're too lazy or something, or you don't take them to school, or, you just let them do whatever. So that's actually a form of abuse, right? Negligence is one of the 4 types of child abuse, is to neglect your children. So someone can say, well, I didn't do anything. I didn't beat them. I didn't yell at them. It's like, no, but you didn't take care of them either, right? They were sick. You didn't take them to the doctor. They were hungry. You didn't give them food. They needed education. You didn't, arrange for that. So that's actually a kind of abuse. So that's a good example of how you're getting karma for doing nothing. So we shouldn't do nothing. We have to do something. But we need to connect everything to Krishna, and then whatever we do is karma free.
Yes.
Okay, yes, who is that, Rocky?
Yes, Mataji, yes, you were saying about children. So now my daughter was hungry and I gave her food, but she said, no, I'm still hungry. I gave her food before my class, but she said, no, Mama, I am still hungry. So I have to attend my class, and I didn't give her anything. So I just, so what is that? It means that I'm getting karma?
Yeah.
So
You have to
sometimes
keep
it
some.
happens. Like, yes. In practical life, there are so many things that is next to impossible. Like I'm sleeping very late. So it's impossible. It's very difficult for me to wake up early, like at 4 a.m. or whatever. So there are so many things that is like control of your senses are very difficult. So what to do then?
Yeah, you have to do your best, right? If you
Yes.
for example, you have a job and you work until 10 p.m., then obviously you're not going to be going to Mangalarti, right? By the time you get to bed, it's going to be 11 o'clock, midnight. something like that, you can't go to Mangalarti. So basically you figure something out that works for you. And fortunately, Krishna is not attached to rules. Krishna is attached to love and devotion. So you figure something out by which you can mold your life to always serve Krishna and always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And don't worry if you can't do everything that, you know, the brahmacharis in the temple ashram are doing or something. That's not required. I mean, if you can do those things, great. But if you can't, then you figure something out that you can do. Whatever you can do, you do that. Especially if we grihastas with family, life becomes complicated. And so it's like a balancing act. But even in the balancing, right, Krishna should be there. Krishna still has to be on both sides of the balance. Not that I have my material life and my spiritual life and I'm trying to balance them. No, the whole thing has to be spiritual, right? It's just that you're doing some things for Krishna over here and other things for Krishna over here. So Krishna's sitting on both sides of the scale, and at the same time, the scale needs to be balanced with the other things that are there with Krishna.
I feel really regret that I couldn't wake up early, and why I'm not waking up early. It's really shut with my mind.
Yeah. I mean, if you can wake up early, wake up early. And if you can't wake up early, then don't beat yourself up about it. Just, you know, you recalibrate your time schedule according to the time that you can wake up. Just be realistic. There's no use just discouraging ourselves and, you know, feeling bad about things that we can't do. Just focus on the positive and do what you can do and figure out what you can do. You know, like for, you know, decades, I was chanting all my 16 rounds early in the morning before breakfast. And then I had a service, which was like from 5 to 7:30 a.m. in the morning. And I couldn't chant my rounds anymore. So I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? How am I going to chant? And then I just figured it out. I just found a time later in the day, you know, like from after breakfast from like 9 to 11 or 9 to 11:30. And that was my new japa time. And that was the time when I just told everybody, look, this is when I chant my japa. I don't talk. I don't do other service. I don't do anything else. This is my japa time. And I kept that like sacred. And I just chanted during that time. So Krishna is not like, oh, you need to chant your rounds at this time. That time of day is better, you know, because it's more favorable. The modes are, you know, modes of passion and ignorance are not so heavy. But somehow or other, you just need to do all the things that you need to do, all your sadhana and your service and your duties as a wife and a mother and a, you know, if you have a job, those things too, and just need to figure it out. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting, and there's no hard and fast rules for how we schedule our daily activities. You just need to find something that works and then be satisfied with that. You can always pray to Krishna and please Krishna, you know, arrange my life in such a way that optimizes my remembrance of you and my, you know, helps me to make the most out of my sadhana and things. But we just have to make do with whatever it is. And don't stay just lamenting and feeling bad about what it's not. Just be satisfied that with what it is. And yeah, you'll hear it later in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about austerities in the 3 modes of nature. So one aspect of austerity in the mode of goodness is austerity of the mind, right? He talks about austerity of the body, of the speech, and of the mind. And the first and most important austerity of the mind is satisfaction, right? We should be satisfied. Krishna gave us a certain life. He gave us association. He gave us his process. And just, you know, be satisfied with what it is and just do it for Krishna. Okay, Barka?
Mataji, can you repeat the example of inaction in action, please?
In action, in action?
Yeah.
So it can be that you're doing your work, like whatever your work is, say you have a job in the world, but you're doing it in Krishna consciousness and you're offering the results of that work to Krishna. So then you're active but inaction means no karma. Right? You're doing action, which seems to be karma, but it's actually a karma. It's karma free because Krishna is purified by its connection to Krishna. Devotional service also is inaction in action, right? If you're a pujari, you're going on the altar and you're doing so many things, right? The pujaris are very active there, but they're not getting any karma for that because it's devotional service. So the idea is that don't be irresponsible and stop acting in this world, but act in relationship with Krishna, either direct devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, or doing whatever we do as an offering to Krishna. And that way we're free from reactions. Prem.
Hare Krishna. Yes,
Hare Krishna.
I have a point that as according to my perception, if we are doing any job in the material world, that becomes our first priority because that is making us to survive. And if we are honest with the job, for example, I'm a part of a medical unit working in a clinical lab. So if I'm honest with my job, because my profession is just like serving to the humanity and treating patients and getting good diagnosis to them. So according to my perception, that becomes too busy because of the load of patients and all that. So sometimes we have to make compromises with the system. We have to react sometimes with the according to the system in the situations, because if sometimes we are being in a part of a corrupt system. So if we are being too honest, so we can survive there. So sometimes we have to make compromises with the system, and whenever already we know that this is not appropriate thing with the patients and the system, but to survive with that, this becomes sometimes compelled for us to be like the system.
So you know what needs to be done really for the optimal benefit of the patient, but you're not able to do it because it's just overwhelmed and limited resources and whatever. Yeah, so that's another limitation, right? Like I'm saying, you just do whatever you can do. If the situation is such that you can't give, maximum care to every single patient, but at least do what you can do. And yeah, Krishna says that every endeavor is covered by some fault. Nothing's going to be perfect in this world. So, but at least we need to have our heart in the right place and do our best. And that's all we can do, and do it in Krishna consciousness. Okay.
Yes, yes, because we don't have the attorney to change the
Yeah,
things, to change the SOPs, so that we have to survive according to the situation. Because the higher authorities, they don't give us permission for that, even though they
exactly.
yes, even though they know that there is something wrong and they are compromising with the quality. So in our medical field, that if we are compromising with the quality, we are directly compromising with the patient's health. So that becomes sometimes, and we regret sometimes that also sad that we are being a part of such system that makes us
Yeah.
compel. We are not getting any action against of that.
Yeah. So in your case, because you're acting under the higher authorities, then, if there's going to be some karma, then it's going to be the higher authorities that are going to be getting the karma for that. Right. So you don't have to worry. But yeah, it's just unfortunate the way the world is. One day you can open up your own private practice and then you can run it the way you want. Okay, Shobha.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, what are the unauthorized actions?
Unauthorized actions means any action that's not in accordance with the scriptures. Anything that's not, aligned with the instructions of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Can we call it Vikarma?
Yeah, vikarma, that's what it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mataji.
All right, then. Let's go on. We're going to read now Let's read 19 to 24. It's quite a bit, but it's all on this topic of becoming free by cultivating detachment. Who
Mataji,
would
may
like to
I?
read? Okay, go ahead, Kishori, 19 to 24.
2024. Chapter 4, Test 19. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sage to be a worker for whom the reactions of words have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Test 20. Abandoning all attachment to the result of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. 21. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions and acts only for the bare necessities of life, thus, wherein he is not affected by sinful reactions. 22. He who is satisfied with gains which come of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. 23. The worth of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge, merge entirely into transcendence. 24. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the transformation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, we all want to make spiritual advancement, but we live in the material world, and sometimes we need to be engaged in, all kinds of activities that appear to be material, and sometimes they are material, right? If we're not Krishna conscious. So, yeah, continuing our material activities. Yes, trying to live a spiritual life is like we're trying to start a fire. And then material activities are like putting water on the fire. So obviously your fire is not going to burn very well if you're putting water on it. So then we need to stop doing the material activities. And that doesn't, as we just learned, it doesn't mean stopping being active, but it means spiritualizing. So the trick is the art and science of how to live in this world and be active in this world is to turn our material activities into spiritual activities. So in these verses that we just read, Krishna tells us how to do this. Right? He basically paints a picture of what this looks like. So first of all, he says that every endeavor should be devoid of the desire for sense gratification. So we shouldn't work for sense gratification. We should work for Krishna's pleasure, right? Whatever we do, it should be for the pleasure of Krishna. And so that requires some intelligence, right? How to do whatever we're doing anyway as an offering to Krishna. And when we do that, then the reactions get burned up in the fire of perfect knowledge. So then another aspect of what this looks like is that we don't have any attachment to the results of the activities. So even if you go to perform the activity and you don't have any desire for sense gratification, you're just doing it, but you get some results from that, right? Let's say maybe you're a devotee and you go to give a class, you give a talk at a home program or something like that. And you're not doing it for your sense gratification. You're doing it because you really want to, help people and spread Krishna consciousness, and you were invited, you want to support the local devotees and all that. So you go and give the class, but then there are some results. Results is that, people are coming up afterwards and they're telling you, oh, you're such a nice devotee, so scholarly. They're giving you donations, they're giving you gifts, they're giving you a special prasadam, like that. So those are some of the results of your activity, that you weren't doing it for the results, and maybe you weren't even expecting those results. But when the results come, you also have to be careful to not become attached to the results, right? You can't be attached. So that next time you go to give a class, you can't be having an expectation that, oh, I gave a class at this home and people gave me this much money and they gave me this, new sari or dhoti or something like that. So now they're going to give the same, let's see which sari I get this time, which, nice wool shutter I get, or whatever, if you start getting attached to the results, even if that's not why you're doing it, but some attachment can form. So Krishna is saying, even the results of your activity, you shouldn't be attached to. Instead, you should just be satisfied, right? We were talking about that. Nitya tripto, always satisfied, whether you get something or you don't get anything, even if you don't get prasadam or they give you some prasadam that you can't eat because you're on a diet or something, whatever, just be satisfied that you have the opportunity to serve Krishna and be happy. And in that way, we can be independent, right? Devotees should be not independent from Krishna, right? We should be dependent on Krishna, and we should we shouldn't act independently of Krishna, but we should be independent in the sense that we're not overly independent on other people for our maintenance, right? Because there's one place in Srimad Bhagavatam where Prabhupada says that when one becomes over-dependent on the mercy of another person, then that saps the vitality of their life. Basically, it becomes a weakness, right? You can't act. And we see the examples of that in Mahabharata, right? How Bhishma and Dronacharya, they ended up having to fight on the side of Duryodhana in the Battle of Kurukshetra. And Prabhupada says that their mistake was that they became dependent on, the presiding government of Hastinapur for their maintenance, for their food, for their shelter, for everything. And so when the battle started, then they were obliged, because they were dependent on the Kauravas, dependent on Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, then they were obliged to fight for them, even though they were fighting against their beloved Lord Krishna, against, great devotees of Pandavas, and like that. So they weren't independent. The devotee should always be independent in the sense that we're never in a position that we have to compromise our principles, compromise our spiritual values, because somebody wants us to, and we're dependent on that person, so we have to do what they want. Right? That's what Krishna's talking about here. He says he just leaves everything to Krishna. So, yeah, it depends totally on Krishna. He's not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things that he has, nor he does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. So that's what it means to be detached. You just leave everything to Krishna. Krishna, I'm doing this for you, and whether I get something or not, that's up to you. Whether I have food to eat or not, I'm leaving it up to you, right? I'm not depending on anyone else except you for my maintenance, for my protection, for my survival, for whatever. And then Prabhupada says that such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. So that's the epitome of akarma, right? It's as if he's doing so many things, but it's as if he was not doing anything, because there's no good reaction, no bad reaction. Everything is just Krishna's mercy. He's doing it to serve Krishna, and the only result that he's looking for is that Krishna may be pleased, that Krishna may bestow his blessings and bring me closer to him. And after all, that's the only thing that's going to satisfy the soul anyway, right? As spiritual beings, we are not satisfied by gifts of money, by gifts of clothes, by, anything. We're satisfied by Krishna's blessings, by a loving relationship with Krishna. And when we do everything for Krishna's pleasure, and the only thing we expect is his mercy, and we totally depend on him and leave the results up to him, then that brings us closer to Krishna in a loving relationship. And then that gives us the ability to be satisfied, because that's really what satisfies the soul, right? Ahaitukiya patiyata yayatma suprasidati. When our service is unmotivated, no material motivation, and uninterrupted, like we're just only serving Krishna, then we become that completely satisfies the self. It's from Srimad Bhagavatam 126. Okay, then he gives a few more symptoms here. He says that that person, the mind and intelligence are perfectly controlled. So mind is just fixed on Krishna and is accepting things that are favorable for the Krishna service and rejecting things that are unfavorable for Krishna's service. That's the function of the mind. Mind's function is to accept and reject. Right? I like this, I don't like that. I want this, I don't want that. This person is nice, this person is bad. Right? That's the mind. So we need to train our mind in such a way that it accepts what's favorable for Krishna consciousness and rejects what's unfavorable. Right? We accept as our close associates those who inspire us in Krishna consciousness, and we keep a distance from people who drag us down or drain our spiritual energy. Like that. So the mind is controlled, and intelligence is also controlled. So intelligence means innovation, creativity, like that, discernment. So we use our intelligence in ways to, think of new ideas for how to be more Krishna conscious ourselves, how to spread Krishna consciousness to others, innovative preaching, creative activities to engage our children in Krishna consciousness or other family members in Krishna consciousness, or to serve Krishna better, right? If we're cooking for Krishna, use some creativity, try a new recipe, right? Or you're making a garland, don't do the same garland every time, learn some new skills, do some different things with the flowers, make it more beautiful, like that. You're planning a festival or planning a program, be very strategic in your thinking, get together and have meetings and discuss strategies for how to spread Krishna consciousness to new groups of people, new places, start a new temple, like that. So that's what it means to have our intelligence perfectly controlled, that we're using all of the functions of the intelligence in the service of Krishna. And then whatever we have, we give up the sense of proprietorship. So, especially if you're a grihasta, you may own things. You own your home, you own your car, you own, all your furniture in your house and all your devices, and right. So there are many things that you own. You have personal assets, you have money in the bank. So, but this person that Krishna is talking about, who's free from all karma, has no sense of proprietorship. They don't think this is mine and I can use it as I please. They think this money is Krishna's money, this is Krishna's car, this is Krishna's house, this is Krishna's phone, this is Krishna's computer, right? And Krishna's just put these things in my care. He's entrusted them to me for the time being to use in his service. So that we should consider that as a privilege, right? That Krishna has actually trusted us enough to give us some material resources, and he's expecting us to use them in his service. And if we use them in sense gratification, then we're going to get karma, right? But it's a karma when we understand that everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is owned and controlled by the Lord. And therefore we just accept our quota, what's set aside for us as our quota, and we don't accept other things knowing well to who they belong. Right? That's the Ishavasya verse from Shesha Upanishad. So that, and then of course there are needs. So then we don't act for sense gratification, but we can act for the bare necessities of life. So Krishna says in text 21. So bare necessities, right? Make sure roof over our heads, food to eat, decent clothes to wear, whatever we need for our service, and to perform our service nicely. If you go somewhere, you need a car, right? You have to communicate with people, you need a phone. So in today's day and age, the bare necessities of life look different than they did thousands of years ago when you could just live in a hut under a tree and eat roots and fruits or something. To survive in the world today and to live a normal life, you need things, right? You need a mobile phone. You need, some money. So like this, but yeah, we should just be honest with ourselves about what is actually a bare necessity and what is, extravagant. When am I being extravagant? And be conscious of that and try not to be extravagant. Don't just spend money to indulge the senses. Okay. So in the purport to text 21, Srila Prabhupada gives 3 different analogies. It's not a long purport, but he gives 3 different analogies for what this looks like. So he says, first is about the hand. It says, when the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. So in the same way, when we move, when we act in this world, we're not acting out of our own, desire to do something, but we're acting by the will of Krishna. We're acting according to the plan of Krishna. So all of my movements, just like body needs food, so the hand, picks up an apple and brings it to the mouth and, like that. So Krishna wants to spread this movement. He wants to spread the holy name to every town and village. So we act in such a way that as parts of the complete whole, just like the hand is the part of the body, we are parts and parcels of Krishna, and Krishna is the complete whole, and let him move us according to his will. And then he also gives the analogy of the machine, like part of a machine. So he says that the machine requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance. So a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the service of the Lord. So like that, we have our bodies, and the body is our machine, right, for moving about in this world. So just like we oil and clean a machine and maintain it nicely so it can function. So we clean the body, we take care of the body, we brush our teeth, we do some exercise, we, go to the doctor when we're sick. We do all of those things responsibly so that this machine can work for Krishna in Krishna's service. And then the third analogy he gives here is the animal, like a domestic animal, like a cow. So cow, is under the protection of under the care of the farmer, the person who owns it says, so like the domestic animal has no proprietorship even over his own body, right? The cow doesn't have any ability to, decide what it's going to do even with its own body. The farmer comes in and says, okay, stand up, cow, now it's time to eat. And then after eating, he says, okay, now we're going to milk you. All right, after milking, now we're going to take you out to the pasture, right? Like that. So the cow is just being moved. After some time, he goes and brings the cow back, ties the cow up. Now we're going to feed you again. Now milk, now sleep, now, right? Like that. So the cow doesn't even make its own decisions about how it's going to use its body. And Prabhupada says that a cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in the possession, but the animal doesn't protest. So we just say, Krishna, I'm yours, right? I'm just like your cow, and you move me to the pasture when it's time to eat, and you bring me back home when it's time to, for milking, and I'll give you milk. And, whatever you want to do with me, that's up to you. I don't want to act independently. I just want to do whatever you want me to do. So, like that. And then he says, text 22, he says that further, a person who is karma free in this world is that person who is happy with whatever gain comes of its own accord. So whatever comes easily, right? So we don't have to stress out, be all anxious about, I need this, I need that. Even sometimes we think we need something in Krishna's service, and then we try to get that thing because we want to use it in Krishna's service, but it doesn't come. No matter how hard we try, it's just not coming. So then Krishna's saying, don't worry about it too much. Just be satisfied with whatever you do have and use that in my service. And, don't over endeavor this thing. So, yeah. It says the person neither begs nor borrows, but labors honestly as far as in his power and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his honest labor. Therefore, he's independent in his livelihood. So he says again about this being independent. So we should do some work to earn some money so that we don't have to depend on others. But just, do what you do and accept what comes, even if, you don't have a huge income, but just, live within your means, as they say. According to your income, you live that standard of living and be satisfied. That's my karma. That's what Lord has arranged for me in this life. I'm going to have a simple life. I'm not going to have all the things that other people may have, but I'm fine with that. I still have food and I still have a home and I still can chant Hare Krishna and it's all good. I can go back to Godhead. And this is interesting, Prabhupada says in the purport here. He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. So yeah, sometimes you go to do some service and somebody disturbs you, right? And then you think, that's it. This person was so rude. I'm not coming here anymore. I'm not going to do my service anymore. I'm just done. I'm done with this people. Right? So unfortunately, yeah, sometimes devotees can be annoying. They have little habits, or maybe they speak to us, maybe they didn't sleep well, or they didn't get, the burfi that morning or something. So they're grumpy. Anyways, we should just, whatever it is, just accept it as Krishna's mercy and be satisfied. Or you go to make the garland. I know in Vrindavan temple, one friend of mine, she used to make garlands every day for, the deities in Vrindavan. And she said, you wouldn't believe how the ladies fight over the flowers. They're like, get there. And then there's a lot of flowers, but they're not unlimited, right? So everybody wants the best flowers and they think, no, I'm making for Krishna. I should have the best flowers. No, I'm making for Radharani. I should have the prettiest flowers. They're like fighting over the flowers. And, sometimes it gets a little intense. And so somebody might think, I'm not going to do this anymore. Or, I give up. So no, Prabhupada is saying, don't allow someone else's service to hamper your service. You just be satisfied with whatever flowers you can get. And you just make the most beautiful garland you can with those flowers. And it doesn't matter. The main thing is your devotion. And, Radha and Krishna are going to be pleased with the loving attitude that you have towards the devotees, so they're going to be more happy if you accept, the second best flowers and use those with love and devotion, than if you fight with another devotee and make a devotee feel bad just to get the best flower for your garland for Krishna. So, yeah, we have to see what really pleases Krishna. And Krishna is pleased by cooperation and kindness and generosity and love and devotion for him and for each other, right? We should also be loving with each other. Okay. And then because he's doing, the devotee is doing everything for Krishna, then they're above duality. Duality means I like this, I don't like this. But because everything is for Krishna, it doesn't really matter what I like. You just just concentrate on what Krishna likes and do that. And no duality. If it's a success, that was Krishna's mercy. If it didn't work out very well, that's also Krishna's mercy. It's all just Krishna's mercy. And so I can do anything for Krishna. And whether it's successful or failure, that's also irrelevant, because what Krishna cares about is the devotion, right? He doesn't care about the result so much. Okay, so this is very, Krishna's giving us a very well-rounded picture of this. And then in text 23, he says, the person who works like this, unattached to the modes of material nature, fully situated in transcendental knowledge, merges entirely into transcendence. And by working like this, we actually rise to the transcendental platform. And then on that platform in text 24, everything that we do becomes spiritual. So this is the result, that even though we're engaged in so many different things in this world, it's all just spiritual. Everything becomes spiritual when we work with this mood that Krishna just described in the last few verses. So then, yeah, this text 24 is a beautiful verse Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. So Brahma means spiritual. And actually, this doesn't come out in Prabhupada's translation, but Krishna is using a metaphor here of a fire yajna, fire sacrifice. So he says, Brahma arpanam, that the arpanam, yeah, that your offering, the act of offering is spiritual because you're offering it to Krishna. Then Brahma havi, the havi means the ghee or the butter that you're offering into the fire. That also becomes spiritual. And then he says Brahma agno, that the fire that you're offering it into, that also becomes Brahma or spiritual. And then Brahmana hutam, the person who's doing the offering, that person is spiritual. The Brahman who's doing the offering is spiritual. And then Brahma eva tena gantavyam, that the destination of the person who's participating in this yajna is the spiritual world, right? So yeah, Prabhupada translates, a person fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So when we have this consciousness that's described, that we're doing everything, connection with Krishna, nothing for our sense gratification, not attached to the results, no sense of proprietorship, just satisfied with whatever Krishna gives us, not being overly concerned about success or failure, just acting for the bare necessities of life and doing everything in Krishna for Krishna's pleasure, then everything that we do becomes spiritual. Right? So even if you have a job or you're doing service, it's like if you go out on book distribution, right? You're going out, you're not going for your sense gratification. That's the last thing you're going to do for sense gratification. Go out on the street and approach people, right? So, yeah, but you go out there, so, you know, the activity is spiritual. Book distribution is a spiritual activity, as long as you're doing it like, you know, the way we're describing it. And so the books are spiritual, you know, your book bag is spiritual. Whatever you say to the person to induce them to take a book is spiritual. You become spiritualized, your consciousness becomes spiritualized. And by doing that activity, you go to the spiritual world. Right? Everything is just spiritual. One time when I was a very new devotee, I was going to the book room. I was going out in Sankirtan. So I was going to the book room to, you know, get my bag full of books. And yeah, so while I was getting into the room, I put my book bag on the floor. I put my book bag on the floor at the foot of the stairs. And then after I had to go up to the stairs to get something that I forgot. And then when I stepped over my book bag. And so one of the devotees said, oh, you shouldn't step over the book bag. And then I said, but there are no books in it. It's just a bag, you know? And then they said, no, you don't understand. The bag is also spiritual. It's just as spiritual as the books because you're using it in the service of the books, in the service of Sankirtan movement, in the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada. This is like paraphernalia. It's not different from Lord Balaram. And I did a whole thing and I was just like, oh my God, I didn't know this like bag was so worshipable, you know? So that's what Krishna consciousness does. It takes an ordinary bag, you know, that's just hanging on the rack in the bag seller's shop, and it makes it into a spiritual item that's an expansion of Lord Balaram, you know, and pure and worshipable. So, and that's also what it does to us. That's what it does to our bodies, our minds, our intelligence. It all becomes spiritualized by being engaged in Krishna service. Yes, Prem.
Hare Krishna again. My question is that it is mentioned that whatever we are doing or anything we have continued in the world, if we offer this to Krishna or we include Krishna in that activity, that become spiritual. So I have a question regarding this, that what if these such kind of political leaders who are corrupt and they are doing corruption all the time in the politics, and after that they are going to the pilgrimage and taking bath in the Gangas. So what if they are corrupt and they are taking such a spiritual activity just for the sake of making that spiritual, that becomes spiritual, or just for the survival they are doing?
Yeah. Well, we can't be sure what it depends on their consciousness with which they do those, their pilgrimage, their Ganga Snan or whatever. So we can't, it's hard to say because we don't know what their consciousness is, but based on all the other things that they do in their life, their consciousness is probably not, what Krishna is describing in these verses. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, even demons like Ravana used to do, yagyas. Hiranyakashipu went and did austerities. He was chanting Vedic mantras and all of those things. But what was his purpose, right? What was his consciousness, or what was his impetus? It was to get the benediction from Lord Brahma that he could become the ruler of the world and become immortal and take the position of Brahma and basically try to become God and be the supreme controller. So sometimes materialistic people can do these things, right? They go to temple, they do some puja, some yajna or something, and it looks like they're being pious and religious, but actually their motivation is that they just want to get power, they want to win the election, they want to, be able to embezzle money without getting caught or something like that. So they want to, get rid of, eliminate some competitor or something like that. So, and they may be aware, right? Like, especially, in part of the world where religion is very strong, they're aware that what they're doing is wrong. And so, maybe they go and do something for atonement, right? To try to get free from their sins so that they don't have to suffer. But they're not doing it for the pleasure of the Lord. They're just doing it to try to minimize their own suffering because they know they're going to suffer their karma and they don't want to. So they're trying to get free from those things. So they might get free from some suffering, and, they might get some material gain in whatever way they want from what they're doing. But any spiritual advancement that they might make is going to be very slow, very, very slow. It's not that they become spiritualized. So in the same way, when you pick up some material thing and you use it in Krishna's service, that material thing becomes spiritual. But if you take something that's meant to be used for a spiritual purpose and then you just use it for your material purposes, then that also becomes, it becomes sort of materialized, it becomes materially affected. You know what I mean? It doesn't really help you spiritually because you're not using it for a spiritual purpose. Right? Like Hiranyakashipu, he did all those austerities, but then what did he get from it? He didn't get any spiritual advancement. He got his material power, but it just led to, his destruction. It just gave him more and more ability to persecute Vaishnavas and terrorize his own pure devotee son and all that. It didn't help him spiritually. It just put him in a worse position. So that's why the motivation is very, very important. The reason why we're doing something. That, one name for Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardana. That he sees our mood, he sees our intention, he sees the feelings that we have in our heart while we're doing something. And then the result is going to be according to that. Yes, Prem, go ahead.
As I have seen that all the demons, they used to worship Lord Shiva, and everybody knows that the present, past, and the future, everything is very clear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything, that in our past, and present, and future. So the demons, they were worshipping Lord Shiva just for the sake of the power that after that they used to get the misuse of that. That all the things, all the scenarios when God knows that present and future, so why the God is giving them power when God knows that after getting the power they are gonna use it in a very bad way, misusing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what happens with, so demigods are basically like cosmic bureaucrats. So bureaucrat is somebody who sits at a desk and they do paperwork, right? So let's say you're applying for a driving license. So you take your I don't know, it's like in Pakistan, but in the US you have to take a written test and you have to take an eye exam and you have to take a actual driving test and like that. So there are different tests that you have to take. You need to pass all of those tests, and you also need to pay some fees, and you have to show your identification. You need so many proofs of identification because the driver's license itself is an important form of identification. So you need to show like, 2 or 3 different things. And then you take all those documents and all your results from your past tests and everything, and you go to the desk and you show them the things, and you get the driving license. Okay. So now you can drive a car. Now, the reason why you want the driving license is different for different people, right? Somebody wants a driving license so that they can drive the car to take devotees out on Sankirtan, or that they can go to the market and buy boga and bring to the temple, in the car, or they can go on a pilgrimage to take devotees on pilgrimage to holy places. And then other people want a car so that they can go somewhere and earn money, or and other people want the car. Maybe they're using that car because they want to, kidnap children or something and throw them in the back seat of the car or something. So people can use the car for all kinds of good things and spiritual things, and also for all nefarious things. But the bureaucrat who's sitting on the desk, he doesn't ask those questions, right? He doesn't ask, what are you going to use the car for? He doesn't ask, what are your personal qualities? What are your characteristics? Are you a good person or are you a bad person? If you're a bad person, I'm not going to give you a driving license because you're going to use the car for the wrong reasons. He doesn't ask those questions. So the demigods are like that. They don't ask those questions. They're like, okay, you did the puja, you did the worship, you did it all according to the Vedic injunctions, you pronounced the mantras correctly, you distributed food to the Brahmins, it was all complete. All right, you get your thing. You get your power, you get your money, you get your wife, you get your job, whatever it is you were doing it for, take it. And he doesn't ask any questions. But when we worship Krishna, then it's different. You see, because, for example, Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted a kingdom. And he didn't want it for spiritual reasons either, right? He just wanted it because he was angry and he wanted to show his brother and his father and his stepmother that he was powerful and that they weren't going to defeat him. But he was lucky that he came in contact with Narada Muni, and Narada Muni engaged in the processes of bhakti. But even he was doing bhakti to try to get material things. But because he was worshiping Krishna, he wasn't worshiping a demigod. So Krishna is not a bureaucrat. Krishna is not a cosmic bureaucrat. And whenever we approach Krishna, he doesn't let us just go away with our material things. Here you go, get out of here now. Krishna's like, oh, you're approaching me, so I'm going to actually help you. I'm going to help you, and I'm going to free you from these material desires, and I'm going to give you attraction for genuine spiritual life and ultimately attraction to himself. So then by approaching Krishna, then Dhruva Maharaj's heart changed. So that's the difference between, it's one of the differences between worshiping demigods and worshiping Krishna, is that, yeah. So the demigods may give demons the things that they want in this world, and that's why demons worship demigods. That's why materialistic people like the demigods, right? And that's why they don't like to worship Krishna, because Krishna doesn't always give them exactly what they want. Krishna may make them start wanting something different and actually change their heart and change their life. And yeah, go ahead, Prem.
Yes, before we were discussing that making material things spiritual by offering. What if a thief steals things or stuff from the market or someone's home, and then he offers to Krishna, and then he uses it like a profession? So does that become special?
Now you're getting into some gray areas here. So, well, that's mixed, right? Because Krishna doesn't really like stealing, but ultimately everything does belong to Krishna and should be offered to Krishna. So then what happens is Krishna's like, all right, I appreciate that you're offering me something, but I would appreciate it a lot more if you would, acquire things by your honest labor and not by stealing. And you don't have to steal because I'm the supreme controller. I own everything. I'm going to give you whatever thing it is that you want to offer me. And yeah, so Krishna purifies everyone. So that person will get purified from this misconception that they have that they need to steal in order to get things for Krishna.
For a thief, it's also a profession. If we see that everybody has their profession, so a thief is known by the profession he is doing.
Yeah, but it's not a good profession. It's like, it's not a, we should do some noble profession for Krishna. Right? There are some things that, sometimes we say you don't need to change anything, just add Krishna. But, if you're like a thief or a bartender or a prostitute or a butcher, then you need to change that, it's hard to do those things and continue doing those things and saying that it's for Krishna, because it's directly opposed to the principles of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Where are we? Half an hour. So let's go to, let's see. Let me just, yeah, in this purport to text 24, Prabhupada says, a conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. So it's very interesting. Prabhupada lays it out very sympathetically. He's saying that, yeah, we're conditioned souls. We're here entangled in material contamination, this material world where everything is contaminated, and we have to act in this atmosphere. We have to act in this contaminated environment. And at the same time, we have to get out of this environment. So how do we act in this contaminated environment in a way that we don't become further contaminated by the contaminated environment? So that's exactly what this verse is about. Prabhupada says the process by which a conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. And now he gives this analogy that a patient is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products. They can be cured by another milk product, namely curd. The material absorbed similarly, the material absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. So the idea is that, yeah, we get indigestion or some problem by drinking too much milk. But if we take curd or yogurt, which is just milk in another form, then we get cured from that digestive problem. So in the same way, we get ourselves into trouble. We get entangled. We suffer because of contact with matter, right? Because matter is contaminating material energy, three modes of material nature, drag us down. So we through acting in the material world, we become contaminated. But by the same matter, when we use the same matter, same material things in Krishna's service, then those material things and material activities actually liberate us. So that's the example that's given here. Now he says, the more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. So that's the way in which, and Prabhupada says further down the purport, matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. So he says regains. So matter, even material things, are originally spiritual. Everything is originally spiritual because everything originates in Krishna, right? Krishna says, aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. I am the source of this material and spiritual world. So both. He's the source of matter and spirit. So because everything is source, has a spiritual source, everything is originally spiritual. But what makes it material is that it's disconnected from Krishna. So if we just connect it back to Krishna, then it regains its spiritual quality. And he says, Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the supreme. So that's what we do. And the more we connect the material things of this world to Krishna, the more we engage in spiritual activities, then the more this world becomes spiritualized. The whole world can become spiritualized. And Prabhupada said that if a certain percentage of the population of the planet actually becomes pure devotees and is engaging everything in Krishna's service, this whole planet can become like Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. We can re-spiritualize the whole planet by just using everything for Krishna, doing everything for Krishna's pleasure, engaging everything in the service of Krishna. So, yeah, that would totally change everything in this world. Okay, so this process we're doing this is called sacrifice. And now Krishna is going to outline different ways that different people perform sacrifices. So this is a little bit of a... Let's go ahead and read all of these. So text 25 to 32. Barka?
Hare Krishna. Text 25. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of Supreme Brahman. Text 26. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Text 27. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and the life and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Text 28. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. Text 29. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Text 30. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of results of sacrifice, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. Text 31. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? Text 32. All these different types of sacrifice are proved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so here Krishna is outlining different kinds of sacrifices for different kinds of people. But what all of these sacrifices have in common is, the common principle underlining all of them is self-control, right? And that's really what sacrifice means. It means that we're kind of reining it in, right? We're controlling the mind, controlling the senses, and doing that for a purpose, right? Doing that for Krishna. And so, for example, he says the yogis, some yogis offer sacrifices to the demigods, some the impersonal Brahman. So these are their practices that they discharge according to their discipline for different results, either to please the demigods or to merge into the supreme Brahman. And then the brahmacharis, they sacrifice their hearing. So they're controlling their mind, they're controlling the senses by hearing only Krishna Katha, right? Only hearing from scripture and not hearing mundane music, not watching mundane movies, things like that. And then the householders, they sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So this means that they engage the senses with the sense objects in this world in a regulated way, right? In a controlled way, the regulated householders, the grihastas. So they're working in the world, but they're doing that in a regulated way, in a self-controlled way, not becoming overly absorbed in sense gratification, right? The householders are having families, so they're engaging in sex life, but in a regulated way for the purpose of conceiving children, raising those children in Krishna consciousness. So that is their sacrifice. Okay? And then, some yogis are controlling the breathing. So they're controlling their breathing to try to control the mind, to try to purify their body and their subtle body, all for the purpose of trying to uplift their consciousness. And then some are doing the sacrifice of charity, right? They're giving away their possessions or they're doing austerities. All of these things entail self-control, right? All of these things are basically counteracting sense gratification, counteracting indulgence by voluntarily accepting some austerity or some regulation, some vow, some restrictions, like that for the sake of spiritual advancement. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada says that these things are all listed in the bottom, in the end of the purport to text 28. He says, all these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. So these are all different Vedic methods, and that's what Krishna is saying in text 32, that all these different types of sacrifice, they're approved by the Vedas, and they're all for different people. And the point is in text 31 that everyone has to do some kind of sacrifice. If you can't directly just sacrifice your life for Krishna in devotional service, in the association of devotees, then do something, right? Like he says, Krishna says in chapter 12 that the best thing is absorb your mind in always thinking of me with unalloyed devotion and serve me with transcendental love for me. But if you can't do that, then follow the regulative principles and develop a desire to attain me. And if you can't even follow the regular principles, then just work for me. Do your varnashram duties, your prescribed duties, according to your nature, and just try to do that for me. And if you can't do that, then at least, work for some, give charity to some cause. Even if you're not giving charity to your temple, at least give donations to some mundane charity, right? Like the Red Cross or whatever, some charity out there. And if you can't do that, then, what's he say the next? Cultivate knowledge, then study the Vedas and try to understand the situation of this world. Right? So like that, he goes through different levels of if you can't do this, then do that. If you can't do this, then do that. But the point is you have to do something. You have to sacrifice something. If you can't sacrifice your life, at least sacrifice your money. If you don't have any money to sacrifice, then sacrifice your intelligence and try to study the Vedas, like that. But somehow or other, we have to sacrifice something. And so he's saying that different people do different types of sacrifices, and all of them are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are leading towards liberation. But none of them are so potent as devotional service to Krishna, as Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada keeps reminding us of that. And of course, the most important sacrifice in this age of Kali is Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan, right? That's the sacrifice for this age, is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. And fortunately, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it so easy, right? That it's the best sacrifice, it's the highest sacrifice, and it's also the easiest, right? We don't have to merge our ingoing breath into our outgoing breath and stop all of our breathing. We don't have to, do all these things that are given as options here. We just chant Hare Krishna. And then that's the We get all the benefits from all of these sacrifices, plus a lot more. Kishori,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I have two questions. Mataji,
Yes,
first
go
question
ahead.
is my first question is that in test chapter 4, test 31. Krishna is saying that without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet. So, Mataji, what sacrifice you should do
Yeah, that's
to
what I
live
was saying,
happily?
that for us, the sacrifice to live happily is chanting Hare Krishna, right? You chant 16 rounds and do kirtan together with your friends and family, and you'll be very happy. A happy life. So yeah, what Krishna is saying is that without sacrifice, we can't be happy. In other words, if we live selfishly, we're going to be miserable. If we're just living thinking, you know, what can I get for myself? How can I enjoy myself? How can I get the best? How can I be the best? And we're just going to be so unhappy. But happiness actually comes through serving others. Happiness comes from serving others. It doesn't come from being served by others. Happiness comes from giving, not so much in receiving, right? We all know that. We all experience that. But sometimes we forget that. And so happiness comes in helping others and not exploit. It comes from helping others and not exploiting others. Happiness comes from, you know, yeah, just sacrifice. It comes from sacrificing our money, sacrificing our time for others, right? When we spend quality time with others, it's very satisfying. It's very uplifting. But when we're just thinking, oh, how can I use this person for my advantage? Then we just become miserable and anxious, stressed out, and we have bad relationships, and it's just terrible. So we need to sacrifice to be happy. And especially chanting Hare Krishna, then we sacrifice our time and energy for that. We become very happy. Krishna is very pleased. We become happy in this life and the next. And if we live selfishly, we're not happy even in this life. What to speak of the next? Live selfishly, then we just end up going down, getting a lower birth in the next life, becoming an animal or going to a hellish planet or something for punishment for how we treated people. So yeah, this is very practical. All right, Kishori,
Yes.
you had another question?
Yes, Mataji.
Go ahead.
Mataji, in chapter 2, test 32, Krishna is saying that knowing then all different types of sacrifice, we will get liberated. Mataji, how knowing the sacrifice? How we know?
How do we know the different types of sacrifices? Well, right
See,
here,
Mataji.
Krishna's telling us. Krishna's listing them all. He's like, you can do this sacrifice. Some people do this sacrifice. Some people do that sacrifice. Right? He's laying them all out here for us. So he's giving us some options. So just by reading the Bhagavad Gita, we become liberated, learning about these different types of sacrifices. It's so powerful here, reading Krishna's words in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay? Itika.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So my question is, how self-control helps in spiritual advancement?
How does self-control help in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah.
Yeah, self-control is essential in Krishna consciousness, right? Otherwise, how are we going to follow the regulative principles? How are we going to make sure that we're taking only Krishna prasadam and not eating boga? How are we going to, you know, keep good association? How are we going to avoid contaminating ourselves with all of the things in this world that are attractive to the senses, right? So the nature of the senses, especially when you're young and especially when you're new to Krishna consciousness, the senses are just wanting to run after the sense objects, right? You see something beautiful, you just want to go to it, right? You smell something nice, you want to go and smell it. You see something that you think is going to taste good, you want to go and eat it. Right? Like that. So the senses, you hear some music that's like, some groovy rock and roll music, you want to go there and listen to it and dance, or you hear about some new movie that just came out that your friends are talking about, people at school or your job are talking about, and you want to go and see it. So like that, the senses are always getting very interested in sense objects, but most of those sense objects are potentially contaminating. So then we need to control the senses, control the mind, and have self-control, control ourselves, basically. And also we need to control ourselves because sometimes the mind comes up with some crazy ideas, right? Our own minds come up with like very interesting proposals for what to do and what not to do. And if we just, go wherever the mind takes us, then we can end up in trouble. Also, we need to control what we say, right? Because sometimes, you're with devotees and somebody does something and you get annoyed and you want to say something like, why did you just do something so stupid? What is wrong with you, right? We want to just that's what we're thinking of saying, and that's what we're feeling. But we have to control ourselves to not say that because it's going to be offensive. It's going to be discouraging. It's going to make everybody else, feel bad and, unsafe, emotionally unsafe, whatever, so so we have to control what we say and what we eat and what we see and what we hear and what we watch and what we do. Otherwise we can get ourselves very entangled in this material world. We can basically destroy our Krishna consciousness. And then on the positive side, we want to control our minds to think of Krishna. Like during japa, you have to control your mind. Otherwise, the mind is going everywhere, every direction, right? During japa, then you need to keep bringing it back to Krishna, bringing it back to the Hare Krishna mantra. And and control our senses to use them in Krishna's service. Like you're in the temple and you're standing in front of the deity, and then some very attractive person walks by. So your eyes, you're looking at the deities, and some, if you're a man, some beautiful girl walks by you. Oh my God. There's a temptation to look away from beautiful Krishna and be like, oof, right? That person, or even a girl. The women are not so attracted to the male form as men are attracted to female form, but even so, some new dashing, handsome man walks in and you might be like, whoa. So you have to control the eyes, right? Keep them off the object of the senses. Don't contemplate those things. Just absorb yourself in the beauty of Krishna, Radha Krishna, pray to the deities, and to be the object of our vision, right? To attract our minds away from anything that might distract us, pull us away from their service. And like that, this material world, there's danger at every step. So we have to be very controlled to not step into danger. Okay? All right. Anything else? Yes, Shobha. Shobha.
Thank you, Mataji. Mataji, maybe this question is having not sense, but I'm going to ask. So, just in last week we were talking about bhog and prayer. So, where for suppose we are in university and eating something, then we should do first prayer, offer to Krishna, and then eat it. So as we know that uh, Bhagwan will never accept it without Tulsi Patra. Then how can we offer there?
So in your mind, you meditate on Tulsi Pata and you put there,
Oh, acha.
right?
Okay.
You can have the Manasa Tulsi Pata.
Okay.
And sometimes Tulsi is not available, right? You're traveling, you're not carrying a little jar of Tulsi with you. And then you're sitting on a train and you buy some bananas there from that
Yeah,
person that
exactly.
comes by the train, and then you just wash them with whatever water you have and offer to. So then you just imagine, in your mind, I'm taking the Tulsi and I'm putting it there on the banana and it's looking so beautiful there, little Tulsi manjari on the banana. Krishna, please accept this. Like that. You can do that in your mind. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness, right? It's so sublime. You don't even need to have the actual ingredients. You just meditate on those things. Oh, somebody was raising that point before that if you're sitting on the sofa, when we were talking about action and inaction, inaction, you're sitting on the sofa, but you're meditating that you're, in Vrindavan doing Govardhan Parikram or something.
Yeah.
That's a good example. That's actually inaction in inaction. That's a new category. Inaction in
In
inaction.
action. Okay.
So you're not
Thank
doing anything, and you're also not getting any bad karma. You're not getting any karma, good karma, bad karma, and but you're making spiritual advancement by doing nothing. But you're actually doing something because you're acting in the subtle platform. So we act physically with our gross bodies, and we also act um, in the subtle platform by thinking and feeling. And fortunately, we get spiritual benefit from spiritual thoughts and spiritual feelings. But if we have material thoughts and material feelings, we don't get punished for those. Only when we actually do those things physically, externally, then we get reaction. But we don't, in Kali Yuga, in previous ages, if you would have a bad thought, you would get bad karma for that. But in Kali Yuga, we get some mercy because it's so difficult in this age and our minds are so crazy. We don't get bad karma for bad thoughts, but we make spiritual advancement for any spiritual activities we do, even in the mind. That's how merciful the Lord is in this age. So, whenever you're bored, you can just sit down and think about serving Krishna. I'm gonna make this nice offering and put there and some flowers, make a garland and some nice incense and whatever. You can do a whole puja there in your mind, and you get all the benefit from actually having done it.
Thank you, Mataji.
One of our minister of book distribution was saying you can even distribute books in your mind. You can sit there and imagine you're putting the books in the bag, going out to the street, approaching the person, saying the thing, convincing them, take the book, take the donation, like that. He said the only problem with that is that the person doesn't actually get the book. You get the benefit from distributing the book, but the person doesn't get the benefit from reading it because they didn't actually get it. So, yeah. Some things are more effective and some things are less effective, but better than nothing. Okay, Shobha, you wanted to say something else?
No, no, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay, so Lakshmi,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Mataji, I have a
Krishna.
question. If what is written in our if what is written in our destiny will happen no matter what, even for a Krishna devotee, then do we still practice Krishna devotion?
Say that again. You got kind of like your voice was like
I am
slurred
saying,
by the Zoom.
if what is written in our destiny will happen no matter even for a Krishna devotee, then why do we still practice Krishna devotion?
Well, it's not that everything is predetermined, right? We have our karma from our past lives and things, but that by Krishna consciousness, that can also change. Right? It said that even if you even sometimes they tell you your future by the lines in your palm, right? And it said that even when you clap your hands in kirtan, then your karma goes away. You're standing in front of the deities clapping your hands, and even the lines on your hand can change. So, anyways, yeah. So when we take to Krishna consciousness, we get freed from karma. That's what Krishna is saying in these verses, is that when we act in devotional service and Krishna consciousness in all these ways, according to what he's describing, we get free. We're not getting any more karma, and we're also getting free from our karma. So our destiny is changing. We can change our destiny. It was determined to be something in this lifetime, but then now it's different. And something that was supposed to happen is not going to happen. Or it happened in a very small way, right? You were supposed to break your leg, but you end up just, twisting your ankle or stubbing your toe or something like that. A small thing. We might get a token reaction for our karma. And also by what we're doing now, that creates our future, right? That's determining our future. So yeah, otherwise there would be no meaning to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. It says that, one who worships the demigods goes to the demigods, one who worships ghosts and spirits goes to those, live with those beings, and one who worships me comes to me. Right? So if everything was predetermined, for the rest of eternity, then why would Krishna say that? He's saying, no, there are choices. If you do this, you get this result. If you do that, you get that result. So that means that what we do now is creating a result that's going to affect our future, what's going to happen. And he says, if you follow the scriptures, you're going to live happily in this life and in the next. If you neglect the scriptures, you're going to be miserable and you're going to be, cast down into lower species of life. So it's not predetermined. Some things are there, because there's law of karma, but we can also, even a person who's not a devotee, by the way they act now, they're setting themselves up for a certain future. But with the speak of devotees, we get freed from karma. So then everything is just in Krishna's hands. And Krishna can just do whatever he wants with us. Right? He can make our life whatever. And that way Krishna will just give us whatever's beneficial. It's like let's say you have a child who has a special diet. They're allergic to some things, right? So if you eat those things that you're allergic to, then the child can get very sick, can even die if the allergy is very severe. So you go to the temple and the mother's going through the line. Child goes through the line with a plate and the like buffet style serving. And then the person who's serving is just giving them everything. Little this, little that, little this, little that. They have everything on the plate. So then the child doesn't eat anything, sits next to the mother. And mother says, okay, what do you have there? All right, so, well, that's not going to be good for you. You're allergic to that. We're going to take that off. And this, anyways, I think this is just not healthy. We'll get rid of that. And I know you don't like this, so we'll take that away. Okay, now these few things here, you eat that. So that we start off our life, every lifetime with a plate, right? There's some things that are good, some things that are bad. We have good karma, bad karma, mixed karma. We have all kinds of things on that plate, right? And then if no one intervenes, we just go through our life, then we're going to have to eat what's on our plate, basically. But then if Krishna comes along, if we come to Krishna consciousness and take shelter of Krishna, then Krishna is like the mother. He looks at our plate and he says, oh, hold on, someone has to mute themselves or stop talking. Anyway, so Krishna looks at the plate and he says, oh, this is not going to be good for you. This is going to give you a lot of trouble. This is going to maybe, cause disruption in your spiritual life. So he takes things off the plate and then he says, and then he adds things to the plate also. Like the mother might even say, look, with all those things I took off, now you don't have enough to eat. Let me give you more of the good things from my plate. So then Krishna will also take off all the things that are basically potentially destructive to our spiritual life. And then he'll leave those things which are good or harmless. And then he'll add things to the plate. And then that becomes a new plate. Right? We have a new life situation. We have new karma, basically, which is Krishna moderated karma. So that everything in our life now is favorable to Krishna. Because we've told Krishna that that's what we want. Krishna, I want to live my life for you. I want to surrender to you. Please mold my life in such a way that I can just go back to God at the end of this lifetime and not make any mistakes. I have to take birth again. So we're okay, Krishna, so we'll take this away, that. Like that, Krishna gives us exactly the life experience that will enable us to become purified of our anarthas and get free from our material attachments. And, it might involve some suffering along the way, because we have work to do. We have things it's like pulling teeth, if a rotten tooth, you have to get that tooth out. So that's going to hurt. right? So there's going to be some suffering, but it's good because you're getting rid of that rotten tooth, and then you won't have any more suffering from the tooth. So the same way we have our anarthas are like rotten teeth. They're like decayed teeth, and they need to get pulled out. So when the anarthas are getting pulled out, sometimes there's some suffering, but it's a good thing, right? Because after that, we're pure, and we become eligible. We become more qualified to go back to Godhead. Because to go back to the spiritual world where everything is pure, we also need to be pure. So, but whatever it is, even if it involves some difficulty, some suffering, but it's going to bring us closer to Krishna, and that's the plate that Krishna gives us. Yes, Bimla Prasad Prabhu.
Yeah, no, like I'm just like in two minds because it's like we are completely out of time. I was like tempted to show something to that
Oh.
point of predestination, predetermination, that question of Shobha, like what's the point?
Yes.
Of course, you already this recently crossed me. Might find it interesting. Just maybe 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is it. This is you see,
Yeah.
this is a condition of Jayapataka Goswami. So their devotees, they met various astrologers, see their opinion. Met one astrologer before the transplant near Coimbatore. He was very reputed astrologer who neither met Guru Maharaj, in this case Jayapataka Goswami, before nor who knows who is. After checking his chart, he said this particular person, his lifespan ended in 2008. Which is when he had the stroke. But right now he's living on an extended period of lifespan. He has negotiated with the Lord to stay longer. This person, he wants to fulfill some of the responsibility, instruction of his Guru gave him. And just for this purpose alone, his desire to stay longer and longer. And he said that the body he has is no longer fit for anyone to live in. So just because he wants to fulfill the instruction, desires, spiritual master, dragging on and on in this body longer and longer. Janki Prabhu asked, can you tell us at least how long he will be stayed? That entirely depends on his desire and the Lord's desire. This is a Mahatma, and the desire, I desire to see this person. See, it does work. It does cut across the karma, the cycle. That's it.
Yeah. So when we just totally surrender to Krishna and Krishna, my life is for you. I want to serve you. I want to do this service for you. Then it changes everything. By Krishna's grace. Okay, so we'll end here. And I'll see you next week, Monday. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.
Premaji ki jai ho.
Jai.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.